Hello, everybody. Welcome to Meal Prep Monday. If you guys are watching this on replay, these calls are here for you for accountability, for support. You can come on live for coaching to help you with goal setting, for the accountability aspect of meal prepping, any questions you have about PCOS nutrition. And tonight we're going to be prepping up lunch. That's what I'm going to be doing this week. I had a few other things planned, but I'm feeling that low energy today. So what I wanted to do is just optimize my time because I'm tired and fatigued and I don't really want to spend a lot of time in the kitchen tonight. And that is okay. And I think that's important to understand that not every week you'll have the energy to do everything. And I realized when I looked at my plans, I was either going to do like meal prep for a smoothie, like I make smoothie bags, and then I was going to make a snack, the energy bites, and I was going to make my lunch. And out of all of those, I need to prioritize my lunch because that's really like the most important meal. I can make a smoothie in the morning or something else. I don't have to meal prep that all the time. And then for a snack, I know that I have plenty of other things for snacks. I have a lot of fruit and like cheese and some veggies and dip. I'll be okay this week. But if I didn't have lunch ready, I probably would kind of go in between clients and calls and be like, oh my gosh, what am I going to eat? So I really wanted to make sure I had a nice high fiber, high protein lunch. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to make this week. I was going to make the chicken, wild rice, and vegetable bowl. But as I was going through my refrigerator today, I realized I have a lot of ingredients on hand. I did a in-person cooking demo and I had a lot of ingredients I used as like props and decoration. So I ended up bringing those home. So I have a lot of produce that I do not want to waste. So I think this is a really good teaching tool to show you guys that you can use these recipes almost like a formula and make it really simple if you need to. You're like, I just want to use what I have on hand. And that's what we're going to do. And I'll show you how I just kind of like use certain flavors to make things taste good. So for this normal bowl, that the chicken, wild rice, and vegetable bowl, it has a base of greens, of kale. Then you would roast some vegetables, then add a fresh element with some pomegranate seeds, or you could use chopped apple or grapes or something like that. And then you make a dressing. Wild rice is the base, but I didn't have any, but I do have some of this purple rice that I bought. The purple rice is high in antioxidants. So is the black rice or the wild rice, but this is what I have on hand, so I wanted to use it. This is a whole grain rice. Now it has, let's look at the fiber. It has 2 grams of fiber per serving, 6 grams of protein, and it has that anthocyanin, the antioxidant, in there. Because it's a whole grain, it's going to take a lot longer to cook. I'm going to make it on the stove. So that's going to take me a little bit longer. It takes about 45 minutes to cook. So remember that whole grains do take longer. So that's why it's nice to prep those up for the week. Or you can buy them frozen and then you could microwave them. Or sometimes you have whole grains that are like pearled, it's called, and that will cook up a lot quicker. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna rinse my rice and get some water in my pan and get it boiling basically. So I'm gonna do a cup of rice. I'm just following the directions in the box. I'm gonna do a cup of rice and 2 cups of water. But first I'm going to rinse my rice. And to rinse my rice, I just use a strainer like this. It's this beautiful color. It will kind of turn purpley as we cook. It's really yummy. All right, I'm gonna go give this a rinse and then fill up my pot with 2 cups of water. I'm gonna add my rice to the thing and put it onto the stove. I'm going to bring this to a boil and then I will stir and give it a cover and let it simmer for about 45 minutes on low. And then I'll let it sit for about 10 minutes to steam after I'm done. And according to the box, if I used the pressure cooker, it would only take 18 minutes on high, and then you allow it to naturally release for 10 minutes. So it still takes some time, but I like the hands-off method usually. Tonight's just not going to work. So this is a good thing to try, or you could try the wild rice. So if you are making the recipe as written this week or right now, you would want to preheat your oven because you want to get those veggies that you want to roast into the oven. I have a bunch of veggies that I want to use, but I don't want to roast. I'm going to use my carb as like the purple rice. I don't need to add the butternut squash or the delicata squash tonight or this week. I've got a bunch of kale that's kind of looking a little wilty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use all my kale, but I'm going to saute it I have a half an onion. I have a bag of vegetables, mushrooms, zucchini, shredded carrots, and bean sprouts. So we're going to add that in. And then I have some bell peppers that are on their last leg. So we're going to add those in as well. I'm going to cut off the parts that I don't want to eat, but I'm going to give everything a rinse. I just want to rinse all my produce and then we'll start chopping and getting everything into the pan. So off to the side, I just have a really big skillet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to saute my onion and add the veggies, and then I'm going to add in some ground turkey meat that I have. The recipe calls for cooked chicken. So I was originally just being like, oh, I'll just use the ground turkey and I'll just top it, like build everything into a bowl. But because of what I had on hand, I'm just going to saute everything together and add some seasonings. And then when I go to eat, I will put rice, that turkey veggie mixture, and then the dressing and make little bowls. So, depending on what you're doing today, you want to rinse your veggies, your kale, your Brussels sprouts, if you're making it, your delicate squash. We're going to rinse everything and then meet back here and start chopping. Okay, so I've got my kale. I have everything in a colander. I'm just kind of letting it drain. I'm going to chop off some of the bad parts of the peppers that I look a little soft and I don't want to add to the pan. Then we'll get going on everything. Gonna remove that stuff. So I'm gonna let my kale just kind of drain for a few minutes while we get the other veggies started. And I'm going to get my pan heated. I'm gonna turn on my hot plate. Mine takes a while to heat up, so that's why I want to get it going. I'm gonna add just a little bit of oil. I might need to go get another oil. I'm using olive oil just so that when I add the veggies, they don't stick. And I'm going to just start by chopping up an onion. That's usually a really good place to start when you're making up a dish where you're kind of like riffing on things. Like we don't have much of a recipe here. We're just kind of adding flavor. Starting with an onion or a garlic is always a good start if you tolerate them. And I like using the purple onions just because I like the color. And I like keeping on hand an onion that I can use for both raw and cooked dishes. So for this dish, I'm just going to try to dice it. So what I'm going to do is it already has a flat surface because this is just a leftover half onion. And I'm going to hold my hand like this and I'm going to just run my knife. This is like a slicing knife, but it's nice and sharp, so I like to use it. And I'm running parallel cuts to this. Now I'm going to turn the onion and I'm going to go down perpendicular and cut in slices. So I'm going to add my onion, and you could add garlic to this too. I'm just going to use some granulated garlic. So I have this bell pepper. I'm going to cut off the top and the bottom. And then what I do is I'll cut down the center and then just kind of open it up. Then I go in and I just remove the ribs and the seeds. Bell peppers are not spicy, but though if you did use like a regular, like a chili or something like that, a pepper with heat, a lot of the heat lies in the seeds and the internal ribs that we call them. So if you're not a big fan of spice, like I am not a big fan of heat, I usually will try to remove most of the inside of like a jalapeno. Or that's the spicy as I go. But if you wanted to make a pepper not as spicy, then just want to remove the seeds and the internal ribs. Okay, and then for these, I'm just slicing them or julienning them, and then I'm going to turn them so I can create dices. This is going to be great because it's going to give me a lot of color because I have a red, I have an orange, I've got purple onion. I'm going to add the green kale. It gives me a variety of antioxidants and different types of fiber. So this is a great idea to do maybe once a week to whatever ingredients you have on hand. Because right now, groceries are getting even more expensive. And it's great to make up new recipes or try new recipes, but sometimes keeping it simple where you're going to make a whole grain when that could be barley, it could be farro, be rice, make a simple protein and add whatever veggies you have on hand. And then we can flavor it with the dressing to make it taste really delicious. Okay, so these peppers and onions are going right in. I'm gonna give it stir. My rice has already come up to a boil, so I'm just gonna put a lid on it. And I turned it on to low. And then I've got my colander full of kale, and I'm gonna need a stirring device. Basically, I'm just starting the onions and peppers because I'm gonna add in my turkey in a few minutes, but I want to kind of soften the onions and the bell peppers and get it a head start. So for this recipe, it calls for cooked chicken. You could utilize canned chicken. You could utilize a rotisserie chicken. You could do a ground chicken if you wanted to cook a bulk amount, or a ground turkey. We bought a really big pack of ground turkey, and then we made like turkey zucchini burgers and had those for a couple nights. And then we have this leftover turkey. So this kale, again, when you look at the kale, this kale would not be something I would add to a salad because it's kind of like on its last leg. I probably bought it like a little over a week ago or so. But what I'm going to do is just peel off the kale from the stem. It's still good to eat. There's no, and then we're just going to saute it. So it doesn't have that like crispness anymore. So when this happens, I don't want you to throw it away, but you could add it to saute it with veggies and add it to a meat dish or a soup or a stew or a casserole. Eggs also, if you wanted to add to like scrambled eggs. And this dish, this recipe, the original recipe, is really delicious because it has that nice balance between tart and sweet. And the dressing is really delicious. So I encourage you to give it a try, or follow the same method and use up whatever veggies you guys have. And I'd love to get some feedback from you guys on what kind of recipes you want to see more of on the meal plan. If you have a certain preference for a type of food, maybe a type of protein, a method, let me know. I'm open to all ideas to change things up because I really want to make sure that these work for you. Because some days we feel like cooking and some days we don't. And the goal of membership is to help improve our cooking skills, but also be able to eat dinner without stressing about it. This is a lot of kale, but I'm going to use all of it because I don't have a plan for it any other way. And I bought it like this, like a bunch of leafy kale at the grocery store versus the bagged kale because it was only $2 for this whole pile of kale versus the bag was like $5, something like that. So sometimes the convenience is worth it, but other times I just don't see the point because it doesn't take that much time to kind of pull the leaves apart. Okay, so we've got this kale. I'm just going to give it a rough chop. It will cook down once you put it into the pan, but I like to have smaller pieces for when I go to eat it. Just make sure you keep your hands above so you don't chop any fingers. All right, let's clean up all these stems real quick. My rice is coming along. It's simmering nicely. And we've developed a little bit of color on the onions and the peppers, and that's good. That's just going to be a lot of flavor. So to this, I'm going to add some ground turkey. I think that's a really versatile protein to keep on hands. You can make kind of go in any cuisine direction. So I've got probably 1.5 pounds of ground turkey, and I'm just going to break it up with a spatula. The beauty of this dish and like how we're making it is we're going to make a veggie meat mixture that's kind of flavorful, but like a generic flavor, right? So we could use it in this bowl dish for lunch. And then we're going to add in like a dressing that we made. Or we could, like, if we're going to have a lot of it. So it can be used in other applications. I could stuff this in a quesadilla. I could add tomato sauce to this and serve it over pasta. We can use that meat, that cooked meat, and then use it in a variety of dishes throughout the week. If you think that would be a way to help you, make sure you get some good protein and veggies in at your meals. So kind of like a cook once, eat twice situation. Again, I'm using a hot plate, so it doesn't work as well as the stove. To this, I'm going to add in just some garlic powder and some Italian seasoning. Like this would be really great stuffed inside like a whole wheat pita. And then with like tomato sauce, and then you could put some mozzarella cheese. That would be really good. This could kind of be the base of like a sloppy Joe, a taco, nachos. You can kind of use the meat for whatever. Right. It's going to take a few minutes. Making sure mine stays nice and hot. Now, I wanted to show you, while we're waiting for that turkey to cook, we're going to wait until it cooks more and kind of everything is brown. We don't have any more pink meat. Then I'll add in all this kale and really just wilt it down. If there's room in my pan, I'm going to add these veggies. I wanted to showcase the dressing. So I went to that event and I made a bunch of this a maple mustard Dijon dressing. So, and I want to use it. I've had it in the fridge. This dressing, it's in their meal planner. It's in a few of the salads, like the jar salads, and it's really delicious. It lasts a couple weeks in the refrigerator. And all it is olive oil. So I did about half a cup of olive oil, and then I do about a quarter cup of like a vinegar of some sort. So I used a balsamic vinegar, but apple cider is really delicious, red wine vinegar, champagne vinegar, any flavor vinegar you really like. Really like apple and the balsamic. Red wine's still good too. And then, so you need an oil and you need an acid. So you're gonna have the oil and the vinegar. And then I added a little bit of Dijon mustard, and that acts as an emulsifier to help bring everything together. And then I add a little bit of maple syrup to sweeten it. And then you could add salt and pepper, and it makes a really delicious dressing. So sometimes making a large amount can be helpful because you could use it on salad like this or a lunch, use it for a marinade at some point in the week. You can make like roasted vegetables from frozen veggies. So maybe you buy some bags of frozen vegetables and you throw that on a sheet pan and then you'll drizzle a little bit of your homemade dressing. Those are all really simple, easy ways that maybe you could add in more fiber, more color to your diet without having to try a whole bunch of new recipes. You're going to use some olive oil, a quarter cup of olive oil. You're going to juice half a lemon. And then what's different is you're using about a quarter cup of tart cherry juice to give you that sweetness and that like burst of flavor. Then some minced garlic, a little bit of maple syrup, a little Dijon, and salt and pepper. So that is a really great one to try. And it's really great on other salad recipes too. So beyond this bowl. So my turkey is starting to brown. I'm just gonna keep stirring it. I added my seasoning in, but I'm gonna add in some salt and pepper. And I'm gonna start adding in handfuls of my kale. And I wanna just get this to cook down. Kale's like spinach, it won't wilt as much as spinach, but we can fit quite a bit in here. Again, the original recipe has you just use it as like a leafy green, but if you're not a big fan of raw kale, you could definitely saute it. And if you wanted to saute the veggies that go on this recipe all together, that is also an option. The delicata squash and what else is in here? The Brussels sprouts and the delicata squash you would roast. And I even have seen people place kale in the oven and roast it on a sheet pan. When you kind of toss it with the oil and the salt and pepper that you put like on the veggies, that could work as well. What I would do for that is I would start roasting the delicata squash and the Brussels sprouts, and then halfway through add the kale and kind of stir and like finish roasting. So it's starting to come together. I'm just gonna finish this up. I'm gonna cook this so the kale starts to wilt down. And it looks like the turkey is almost all completely browned. And I'm going to add as much kale as I can into this pot. The rest I will put into this bag of vegetables and I'll figure out something else to do with it this week. Maybe a soup or a stir fry. And then I've got my rice on the stove. So I'll keep an eye on that. It's probably got another 15 minutes or so for that rice. And that's my meal prep for the week. When I go to assemble it, I'll add rice, maybe like half cup to a cup. I'm going to add probably a good cup and a half of this veggie turkey mixture, and I'll drizzle on like a tablespoon, maybe a little bit less of the dressing. I'm going to give it a taste. If it needs an extra seasoning or punch of something, maybe I'll add scallions, maybe I'll add feta cheese. That would probably be really good. But yeah, I hope this kind of inspires you to use the same formula to use up some ingredients in your house. And I'll see you guys next week. All right, bye.